You have the agenda before you. Are there additions or deletions?
I have one deletion, and that is the 2 Eagle Scout recognitions to David Teo and Joseph Frith will be made next month. They're neither one able to attend tonight.
Anything else? With that modification, a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second? Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 5 in favor and none opposed. Tonight we have 2 public hearings. The first public hearing is the proposed revisions to Montreat General Ordinance, Chapter I, Article 2, Noise Control. You want to say a few words? It's been on the website. We've had discussions about the noise ordinance in the past. Anyone want to say anything?
How about some background, Ron? You know, just a little bit of background. Sure. Just the reason we're looking at it.
Just a little bit of background. At the request of the board, the Planning and Zoning Commission met to review the noise ordinance during the April meeting. This was precipitated by public concern expressed over the legal basis for certain sound permitting requirements and the appropriateness of our current decibel limit thresholds. Portions of the code were identified that need to be cleaned up and made consistent with other sections of our ordinances. And our staff revisions and planning and zoning revisions, as well as the town attorney revisions, are included in the document before you tonight. So I could give this to David if you'd like some specific.
No, the MRA already looked at it and they're okay with it.
Yes, sir. I believe both the MRA and the college, yes.
We'll have opportunity to discuss that under our section. This is the time for the public, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we have more questions, we can ask them during our time. This is for the public.
If there are no comments, we'll close this public hearing and move on to the public hearing for the Upper Kentucky Road Phase 1 Resident Utility Assessment Preliminary Assessment Roll. Would you like to give any background for that, Ron?
This is a little confusing, so what I'm going to do is just pull up the map. Talk about that first. We have, I think at last count, about 4 projects that are going on in the Upper Kentucky Road area. Tonight, the public hearing concerns the resident utility assessment for the preliminary assessment roll, and if you can see, it's the red line there, Phase 1 resident assessment. So right there about in the middle of the page, right above the yellow line. Again, we have 4 projects. This one is to extend utilities to roughly about 4 lots in there, and the road to 5 lots.
Any public comment? Bob?
Well, let me be brief. We about several years ago, we approached the council at that time to go through the process that's precipitated all this stuff and all these projects and whatnot. We were looking for a road to a couple of lots that we had up there. And I guess tonight marks the conclusion of that, and we are very grateful. I'd like to personally thank the council as well as those who were predecessors to this board that were on there in the initial time, and particularly also the town staff. Ron has been a great help to us in that process. We had some challenges and we worked through those, and we just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience, Bob. Anyone else? And we'll close the public hearings and move on to communications. I do have a few things tonight. The town began the 4th of July activities with our 14th Montreat Gate at the Montreat Gate. I want to thank Matt Ashley, our Town Public Works and Police, for setting up the race and keeping us safe as walkers and runners proceeded along the way. We had about 150 people this time, which is down from years gone by, but I think a lot of people woke up at 6 o'clock and saw the rain and rolled over. But we really had a great race and good weather. Last year, in a gesture to acknowledge the centennial anniversary of World War I, Dave Arendt supplied an American rifle, a 1903 Springfield, to start the race. This year, he brought a British Lee Enfield Mark III, made in 1916, to use as a starting gun. And I'm heard it could have been heard. I could have started races 3 counties away. That gun was an example of what soldiers in the United Kingdom used what was known as the Great War. And this year we had one of the largest crowds I can remember participating in and watching the parade. The entry form on the parade, to be in the parade, says it's held to celebrate Montreat, freedom, peace, unity, and our community of faith, and that there should be no entries that might be considered offensive to any group or individuals or that are controversy to the spirit of the parade. This year, as you know, someone joined the parade without following the process. Thanks to cell phone technology, our police are fairly certain they know who the individual was wearing the paper bag over his head. It was a disappointment and concern that this special time was disrupted by this person. And if you're a resident of North Carolina, we could use your help with the bill that's currently in the House. Several months ago, Senator Van Dyne came and presented to us the issues surrounding the efforts to redistribute sales tax to the town council. Since she was here, the Senate passed that bill, and now it is in the House as House Bill 97. This redistribution of sales tax will have a devastating effect on Montreat and Buncombe County. Your taxes will go up every year if this is passed. So please contact your local representatives to encourage them not to support the bill. Passage will ensure that there will be tax increases for Montreat for years to come. And Mary, Martha, and Tim and I had the opportunity to attend the groundbreaking for Montreat College, their athletic complex yesterday in Black Mountain. It was a wonderful affair, and to see the earth mover moving the dirt and know that that complex will be in place before the end of September, they hope. It was a wonderful thing to see that's happening for the college, and we were very happy to be a part of that. The consent agenda, Ron?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, under the consent agenda, the board adopted the June 4th, 2015 agenda meeting minutes. Again, I apologize. We have just been overwhelmed with folks this July 4th holiday these last 2 weeks with questions and helping folks and stuff. And so I have still not had a chance to review the draft minutes that have been prepared by Steve Stackhouse. So we will get those to you as soon as we can. I think we're up through the 18th right now, and then we'll again try to turn those around for you. Tonight, the board called for a public hearing, approval of financing agreements on August 13th, 2015 at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter to discuss the application for approval of financing agreements authorized by NCGS 160A20 for the Upper Kentucky Phase 1 residential and neighborhood utilities and street projects, and also the Peace Lane Street project. And just to say a word about that, those are the 4 projects that I just went over on the map with you. What this does is allow the town to borrow money to be reimbursed for those projects so that we can pay those back at a time period where the folks that are being assessed for those are paying us back. So again, we sort of operate as a bank. We borrow the money, complete the projects. Projects are completed, and then those folks pay us back over a 10-year period. Tonight, just have a few updates for you. I do want to address one issue with Texas Road Bridge Project. I just finished this late this afternoon, so you have it there in front of you. I apologize, it's not on the screen for everybody. We will make this available on the website for folks to read. It's in response to questions raised by Don Reed, and also some of the commissioners had the same questions. I will say the Texas Road Bridge project's moving along, and we are still on track for a let date of probably August, maybe September. So we will continue to update you on those projects. One note of good news is that I believe, David, we received our
No rise certification review by the state of
we did receive our no-rise certification from the state floodplain mapping program this week.
Wait a minute,
What
wait a
is
minute.
that?
Whoa,
Yes.
whoa, whoa,
What
whoa.
is that?
As I announced at a previous meeting, we received no rise certification documents from Suncape Designs because it had some channel grading and some other things that were involved in it, and there was a lot of extensive computer modeling that was done. I turned it over to the state floodplain mapping division because they will, free of charge, get their engineers to review the math, to look through everything that was submitted to be sure it was sound. And they have returned it to me. They said that the calculations that they ran based on the base model are accurate. So that their design for the bridge, the elevations, everything that they show based on the new bridge layout, the work they'll be doing in the channel is going to actually cause a reduction, I think, of slightly in excess of 1 foot upstream of the bridge in the base flood elevation. Now, that does not change the base flood elevations that the floodplain maps have. So that will not affect and cause any type of reduction in the bridge height based on what they presented in their information to us in the 75% plans. So don't confuse those two. The review that was done by the state floodplain mapping program only had to do with looking over their no-rise certification that they are required to turn in because they're doing work in the floodway.
That's no rise, R-I-S-E?
Correct. What they have to prove is that their work, the bridge project, is not going to cause any significant rise in the water surface elevation. And then they showed that through the engineering that they provided.
It doesn't add up.
Well, as I said, be sure that you're seeing the difference
I
between.
can't
the two.
agree with that at all. He didn't ever give it to me to let me get that other guy to look at it too, because something's out of kilter. You and I agreed to that. It looked like there was a problem with the model, more than likely. But we haven't, that's where I'm worried about. I don't go from 25 feet to 65 feet. It just doesn't happen. Something's wrong. And so I know we're in a work in progress. Those are preliminary drawings. And we still got to work on that.
Once again, this doesn't have anything to do with the base flood elevations that the floodplain maps show at the site. This is simply calculations their engineering firm ran to show that there will be no significant impact in an increase in water surface elevation at the bridge, period.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now, though, you're at 6 feet rather than 8 feet, too, if I recall what we were looking at. Isn't that correct?
The BFEs
Top
that
of
the
last
floodplain
fall,
maps
what I'm
show
talking about.
dictate the height the bridge has to be.
Yeah,
That's the state floodplain mapping program's
right,
maps that they prepared. That's what the calculations were based upon.
yeah.
This doesn't modify that.
Well, it changed something anyhow, but we're down to 6 feet instead of 8 feet, I remember that. But we gotta do some more work on it. It's a work in progress, everybody needs to understand that. And I'm an engineer, and I do these kind of things on a daily basis, so I know when he tells me it's preliminary drawings, there's a lot of other work to be done. We have yet to receive anything that tells us exactly what the bridge looks like, the actual bridge component. All we got is a layout and also a cross-section. And the cross-section looks fairly decent, but the cut and pick and curve is right in the creek bed. You know, that was a Russian River in 2004, twice. And we didn't go over the bridge, so somehow or other we have to bring that up. I don't know, I know y'all went down and talked to them, and the same mapping people, and I don't know, something's still not adding up right to me. And so I know we gotta work on that. But in addition to that, if I'm now looking at this project cost, when we started this operation, or project, if you will, we were planning on doing it ourselves. But the people that were doing the work didn't know anything about the FEMA action that we had to go through now because of where our stream is on that map. Is that not correct?
If I'm understanding your question, no, that's not correct. There's always been the floodplain issue to deal with. What we did not have, first of all, was the location of the bridge decided until well into the process.
Yeah.
Once we had the location decided, then we could look at the flood maps and determine what the base flood elevations the flood maps indicated and work from that for the bridge design.
You are correct, though, the first estimates from the engineers.
You are correct that the first estimate from the engineers that did the inspection did not include any FEMA-related work.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I knew that, but I mean, that's what created some of the information that we had to go through. And we went through and we looked at 4 different sites on that thing overall. And then when we looked at the costs, and we're always interested in keeping costs at the minimum and get the most efficient piece of equipment. And you can't hear me? Oh, okay. I'll holler at you, Bill. Oh, we have to, let me see where I was. Okay. We started looking at those things, and we discovered that we were going to have a lot more money involved than what's involved now with the 80-20. We didn't just go after it to be going after it. We went after it to save maybe more than $200,000 to put that bridge in there. So, you know, to say we didn't do that is an absolute untruth, and I'm kind of getting tired of it. So these numbers here, they're all involved in there, but we got, and we can go through those numbers.
Well,
I mean, it's the first time I've seen them
I'm going to read them.
listed that way, but I knew
Well, this
we
is the
had
first
them.
time they're listed this way, and that's another thing I want to point out. This is not new information. This information has been available on our website for quite some time. The plans, the documents, the CE document, which is the categorical exclusion document, this is not new information. Now, this will be the first time you've seen it lumped together, I think. But the first question is, what did the change of bridge location from Tennessee Road to the current site cost the taxpayers?
May I stop right there and ask a question? Are these questions posed by Mr. Reed, or are they questions that you posed and are answering?
No, these were questions specifically posed by Mr. Reed, and most of these questions were answered on June 11th.
And I'd also just like to point out, also in response to the flyer that many of us received in our mailboxes over the past day or two, I've been serving as commissioner since basically 2010 and have joined sort of midway, more than two-thirds into the project. It had been started in 2008, 2009. But as I review the minutes and as I remember the minutes and as I have looked at them in contrast to what the flyer says, the only actual vote that I am aware of was taken in March 13th of 2014. We had several discussions over this series of years, and in the annual retreat in 2013, we talked a lot about the Tennessee Bridge versus the build-in-place at Welch Field. However, and at that point in time, in 2013, at the board retreat, I asked each of you to go back and look at the archived minutes so you can verify this for yourself, that we were given the information that the build-in-place at Welch Field was the most expensive and also that we could not get emergency vehicles over that spot. So we came to a consensus, but there was no vote, according to the minutes, that Tennessee would be our best option between the build-in-place and Tennessee. Going forward to the 2014 annual retreat, and I ask you to go back for yourselves and look at the minutes there, a new set of information was presented to the board, and the board at that time included Commissioner Helms and Commissioner Vinson. There had been a change in the board. That is accurate. New information was presented at that point in time in February of 2014. At that point in time, the Welch Field Bridge build-in-place was the cheaper option, and we were told that indeed emergency vehicles could indeed use the Welch Field Bridge. A consensus was reached, with the exception, I will say, Commissioner McCaskill has been pretty consistent over the years of wanting it to be built there at the tennis courts, below the tennis courts.
I have to stop you there.
Right.
I was not in favor of Tennis Road. I was in between Tennessee and Georgia Road because we owned most of that property already. It was already out of the flood thing. The Tennessee Road one was actually the most expensive one to do, and the cheapest one was the one that was in between Tennessee and Georgia.
Well,
and we talked to the people there, the families were over there on Texas Road, and showed them where we wanted to go, and they were okay with it. It was going to run right into their properties, but
and that was way back in 2000.
that was the cheapest one. I didn't mean to contradict anything, but we did not. The Tennessee Road connector felt good, but it didn't work out good because of some of the land operation we had to go through was much more expensive than taking it on the high side of the Flat Creek.
So I just wanted to make that real clear, and if you've read that flyer by Ms. Melvin and Reverend Burris and Mr. Boggs, that was not accurate and complete information that was in that flyer. The only vote that was taken, that was requested by KCI, to my knowledge, was in March of 2014, and that was indeed the motion was made by Commissioner Campbell and seconded by Commissioner Helms at that point in time. So I want to be very clear about that. And to vote in place because we could do the emergency vehicles, and it was the least expensive of the two options. And I also wanted to be very clear as we're discussing that this question, what did the change of the bridge location from Tennessee Road site to the current site cost the taxpayer, is an incorrect and misleading question, because the only final vote that was ever taken was for the Welch Field in-place bridge. So just to be clear on that. And don't forget, as Jack said, this was an 80-20 split that we're talking about, and the flyer doesn't talk about the 80-20 split that we had, nor does the flyer talk about the November 2012 charrette that we had, asking people to come, all the citizens, to come and make their preference between the 5 options that we had: the no build, the Welch Field, one between Tennessee and the in-place Tennessee, and the well site below the bridge. And basically it was a 50-50 split at that point in time between those who wanted it built at Tennessee and the ones who wanted it built on in place. So the flyer doesn't include that information, so I want to be very clear about this question.
Okay.
Ron, if I might just respond to part of that. When I voted, and Martha made the motion, and I seconded it, to put it where it is today, or where we're proposing to put it, I had no idea it was going to look the way it looks. I had no idea it was going to be 42 feet wide, 8 feet tall, whatever the heck it is. I envisioned something pretty much like we've already got up here at Lookout Road and coming into this, and the one up there at the barn. That was my vision at the time. My mistake.
Well, no, the vision is kind of out of whack in what they're saying. It's not just concrete. We had an agreement with the NCDOT through the engineers, and we had to argue a long time to get rock, like it was up there at Lookout and the one in Anderson right here, the walk-up building. We got that included because they were not gonna do it. They kept sending us pictures of these bridges they'd done before, and they had wood, and they had metal, and they had concrete. And we said, no, we want rock. If we have to pay for it, so be it. Well, when they changed some in that document he was talking about, it got included in the 80/20. So we have rock gonna be there, like on Lookout and on whatever we call this one out here at Anderson. And so in the retaining wall, there's no big deal. I mean, I agree the drawing doesn't give you the right pursuit. And it'll be, you know, rock, but it's gonna be made with concrete. You know, it's not pure rock. And they're having a little problem with it underneath the bridge. But they haven't said anything about the side. They have not given us anything that says other than they are gonna use concrete planks on the sub floor, if you will, sub road. And I presume they're gonna use steel to hold it up, but they haven't said yet. And I don't know how much they're going there, but it's got a fairly wide pedestrian thing on that bridge. It's about 5.5 feet, something like that. It shows up on the road bed itself is 20 feet. And when it makes the curve, there's a little bit of extra place in there for that. But as you make the curve on that on the bridge itself, then it widens it out. But that's only for the length of the clear span. The rest of the road is 20 feet and then like 3-foot shoulders on either side. And then you have a retaining wall that will show up on at Welch Field, but it's not in Welch Field, it's back behind it. It's just like the road is. So I don't know what the real problem is, because as you start at 6 feet up and then take it out, level it out, it's about 3/4 of the way up the road, and then you're right back where you started. So, I mean, the thing's gonna look great. People won't understand it, I guess, for a while, but I don't want to put it in my mouth exactly, but you know, I don't know what these questions make much sense anyhow.
Why don't we let Ron deal with the
Yeah.
questions?
Okay, the first question, what did the change of bridge location from the Tennessee Road site to the current site cost the taxpayers? While it is a tad misleading, there are no, the simple answer is none that I'm aware of. The engineering cost of $280,000 and some change included the review of 5 possible bridge locations, including the no bridge or no build scenario. So whether it was there, somewhere else, any of those 5 locations, the cost wouldn't have changed. It still would have been the same amount. Question 2, how much money did the town spend on rebuilding the bridge prior to the state federal government agreeing to pay 80% of the cost of constructing the bridge? The town spent $1,452.91 for the bridge inspection in 2008. The town spent an additional $49,928 in engineering services in 2008-2009, prior to being accepted into the local government municipal bridge program. The engineering information gained from the preliminary engineering was used by KCI Associates and helped reduce the scope and the cost of the final negotiated contract with KCI. If you'll remember, the first contract that we received was well over $300,000. How much money has been spent to date that is subject to the 80-20 split? To date, we have spent $229,668. The town has been reimbursed for $183,710. through that program. Thus, the net expenditure to the town is $45,957. Again, almost $46,000 through that 80/20 program. The total cost not subject to the 80/20 split, again, as I mentioned before, the inspection was about $1,400. Preliminary engineering was around $49,900, so that was a total cost of about $51,000. The total projected estimate subject to the 80/20 split. Engineering services with KCI is again $280,000, roughly $700. The estimated bridge construction, $800,000. The estimated construction engineering, another $150,000. That brings a total cost of the bridge project to about $1.23 million. Of that, federal state responsibility is $984,000, almost $985,000. That means our local responsibility is about $246,000, which was quite a bit cheaper than doing the bridge ourselves, even at the $400,000 that was quoted in the blue sheet. If the project was stopped now, is the town obligated at any additional cost? Unfortunately, we're not certain at this time. Staff expects that the town would be obligated at least to satisfy the requirements of the KCI Associates contract. It is unknown whether a decision to stop the project would jeopardize federal funding and require the reimbursement of federal dollars. If this is a serious consideration, staff would urge the board to consult with representatives from the Federal Highway Administration before making that decision. So again, while we expect the reimbursement or the completion of the KCI contract, we do not know if the federal funds would be jeopardized. Funding would be jeopardized, meaning we would have to reimburse that. And again, not new information. This information is available on the website. It's been there for over the last year. Some of it is not in that, total. But again, it's the same information. We have not changed information that's been included. What I will say again, I think Commissioner McCaskill mentioned it about the bridge width. Again, the bridge design changed. It is no longer the small Texas road bridge that we have in place. That curve of the bridge, the curve going onto the bridge, is accommodated on that bridge itself. So imagine putting that curve on the bridge plus pedestrian access. So again, just imagine that curve being on the bridge in order to improve that approach to the bridge.
Well, the other thing is, the bridge itself was designed, or we asked for the design to take heavy loads, not just a single little car going across, which is what it has been doing. So we have another safety exit. As we've been going around at Lookout and up here on Walkup, if you will, to fix the things where the buses are hitting it and trucks are hitting it, and we needed something that we could get across the road both ways.
Right.
And also, and that's basically what we're looking at, is one of the safety mechanisms there. And as we go along, part of